All right. Good evening, everybody. Konnichiwa, minasan. Yokuso Metapura Dojo e. Welcome to the Metaplanet Dojo Discord. This is the first podcast. Climb, are we here?
Oh yeah, totally.
How are you doing, man?
I'm doing a lot better than I was an hour or two ago.
Yeah, I heard about your internet woes. Did you have to buy all of Starlink or what?
Yeah, I have a couple on order.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, there was some technical difficulties with on Climb side, and finally, we spent like 4 hours trying to troubleshoot the internet connection, and it was terrible. It was like 56K dial up, and we couldn't get anything done. But they sure came through, and everything got fixed. He ordered Starlink. It's not there yet, but his connection got restored. Um, so here we are. We are live. If everybody can drop in the comments where you are from, I will give you a shout out. I think I put the times in Pacific, Mountain, Central, Eastern, European. I know there's like a lot of Europeans. I am one myself. At the Bitcoin conference, Tokyo time, we need that. Yeah, the shorts are trying to stop us, right? Yes, I busted Japanese. All right, let's get going. We have a lot to unpack in this podcast today. You ready, Climb?
Totally.
How are you feeling after that introduction?
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm just excited to do this with you. It's exciting.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for being here. Okay, we got people like there's Vince, Los Angeles. Somebody's from North Korea. I don't believe it. Boston, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Alberta, Orlando. Yeah, Cali, Berlin. Berlin. Wie geht's? Yes, there's few people from Germany, Singapore. Yeah, Asia. Be cool if somebody was from Tokyo too. All right, let's get going. Let's get this show on the road. Okay. First things first, welcome to the Metaplanet Dojo podcast. A few housekeeping items. Let's address the elephant in the room. For those of you who have followed Climb and the Metaplanet Madness podcast, there's been a couple of changes. Climb has chosen to step away from that project due to some creative differences. Going forward, he'll be continuing the conversation here with us in a new format. For those of you who are unaware, a member called Higher Climb and I actually co-founded the Metaplanet Dojo Discord together. We all met on Discord previously, and we were all in the MicroStrategy trade, talking to each other frequently, whether that was in public or private. I typically enjoy a more shadowy role as a lurker, but I've seen so much enthusiasm from the Metaplanet community. It's amazing. So I don't mind stepping out a little bit into the daylight, see what's going on. So again, welcome to the Metaplanet Dojo podcast. It's born from the Discord. It's built by the community. It's meant to carry the signal forward. We're not replacing anything. We're just continuing the mission here with a new tone and a new dojo. Climb, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, the other just wasn't a good fit for me. I think. Let's just leave it at that. And I'm really excited. We've known each other for quite a few months, better part of a year.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, you and Hire reached out to me about starting the Discord, and you know, did 99% of the work. I'm here for the ride, and I'll add a few charts here and there.
Happy to have you along, buddy. All right, so let's go with a few standard disclaimers, housekeeping items. This is not financial advice. Anything you hear on this podcast is not financial advice. It's financial entertainment. We're having a lot of fun just going through charts and building up models and busting them. We receive no compensation from Metaplanet other than the shares that we are heavily allocated. There will be no sponsorship or no extra YouTube monetization. We're just like two dudes nerding it out and talking about it live on air. Um, Third, who are we? So Climb needs no introduction, rightfully so. All of you know him. A few of you know me. So Climb, you know, X, big presence. Discord, big presence. He's traded like wild numbers that make that big eye emoji. People go with the big eye emoji. Uh, my name is Vince. I'm that icon on Discord. I know there's another Vincent going around. Shout outs to you from California, also with a big follower. follower count. I'm just a regular Joe Schmo, long-term investor, bucklehead, recovered a long time ago, 60/40 BND VTI. I traded retail forex for a while and blew my ass up on leverage, 500x. But what that did teach me was a lot of global macros, technical analysis, which I don't do anymore, and also more importantly, risk management and psychology. So like how not to panic and get all emotional and you know as they say, like low T when things don't go your way. So I've also shorted small caps. That was fun. I learned all about locates and paying for locates and not entering a trade, or paying for locates and getting wrecked shortly after, and then reading the tape and low floats, trading low float stocks. That was fun too. I am Bitcoin class of 2017. That's when I got orange pilled. Shortly after, I went into GBTC in my retirements, and then one thing led to another. You go from GBTC to MicroStrategy, and then options. That's where we met Climb. We ran into each other in the Discord. So that's it. Okay, the format of this podcast is not going to be something that we schedule on the regular. So for now, it's going to be purely reactive. It's a grassroots and community driven. I'll touch upon that in a little bit. We're going to be like Bruce Lee, be like water, right? We'll cover main topics. We'll free flow mainly, and we'll also, these conversations that we're having here on the air are conversations that Climb and I would be having anyways in the Discord, whether that's in the main channel or in private. So we'll decide when we go on air, mainly after big news events regarding Metaplanet, whether that's management, new filings, dilution, Bitcoin buys, limit up, limit down. We'll talk about also the cash secured puts, the options income. I know that interests a lot of people. Okay. Community recognition. So this Discord here has so much talent. I'm amazed at what everybody's contributing. Like I said before, this is a community grown and grassroots driven podcast in Discord. Like nobody asked us to make this, we just did, and people came together, and I'm just amazed at that. So on the left here, we have the builders, Chris, Nia, 21 Machiavelli, and like they've like built this Metaplanet Time and Price web app that is being shared widely among the Japanese investor base. We have Shiraku, who's on the bottom left, is creating a lot of visual and audio art, in regards to Metaplanet. It's like very, very, very good art. I suggest you check him out on YouTube. We have Mike also that made all of the art that was featured in the introduction. That was Mike, and he's just amazing. Like all the pictures he generates, I'm like, double take.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, for real. I just added the song, and then the visualizer. That was my part. Like he's there. We shout outs to Jake also. So Jake is our resident boots on the ground in Japan. He hosts a lot of the PTS, TSC. He might actually be live now, like sessions for uh, uh, Tokyo Open, and like he has like 60 people in the audience every time. It's awesome. So like nobody asked him to do this. He just volunteered. Thank you, Jake. Thanks to all the mod team. So all these people on the left, you know who you are. We got Bitcoin mindset, like just pounding the spaces on X every day, going out there like fighting people, whether it's strat fight people or just like boosting the Bitcoin space. Bitcoin mindset, Chris, like props to you for doing that. I can't be doing that. That's too much fighting, but good on you. Klein, you want to say something about this hammer thing?
Yeah, I mean, be careful when you're in the Discord, because if you cross the line, there's a hammer for you.
Yeah, it's called Le Ben Hammer. Okay, like it'll hit you. And Mr. Voyager is like really good at swinging it. So just be careful. Watch out. Thank you to Mr. Borgs too. I call him Botto Master. He created an army of bots, the price bots you can see on the Discord. So like if you're addicted to typing and you can't wait to post that GIF, but you don't want to miss the price action, you just press on the top here and you see the price bots right away. Price is right under your eyes. So yeah. thanks to all the verified people too, people that bring a lot of insights, and whether that's from experience or research, and keeping or helping the newbies like learn a bit more and get situated, orientated. Thanks. All right. Climb, you didn't go to this, so I'll just talk about this, right? The
Yeah.
Bitcoin conference was electric. It was my first one. Like I said, I usually tend to lurk in the shadows. I organized that meetup that you see on the bottom left here, the Rock House, and yeah, it got like so packed, walls to wall, and I booked for 30, and I think like 60 plus people showed up. And then the Metaplanet team showed up too. Jury showed up, and Dylan showed up, and I was kind of like, I was really surprised. I wasn't expecting any of that. So here, uh, shout outs to Epic too, Mark. He's making the shirts I'm wearing today, and then he couldn't even hold on to these shirts. He made 60 shirts, and he gave them all away, and then people were still asking for more. So yeah. Shout outs to Mr. Billboard guy, Mr. Chad Ship. He's like got 18 billboards across the United States or so, and he's like foregoing all the revenue and income on it just to advertise for Metaplanet. I think that was a freaking Chad move. What do you think, Lime?
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah. All right. So we also would like hear from our. We also would like to hear more from our Japanese investors. Sorry, they tend to be very quiet. So I'm going to say that in Japanese for them. そして日本の皆さんへ英語チャンネルでも日本語チャンネルでもぜひ参加してお声を聞かせてください. That's it. Come talk to us. Come interact with us. We want to be global. Climb. Are you ready?
Yes, yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Um,
So go ahead. Take it away.
yeah, so while I was snoozing in bed, not expecting an announcement or anything, I went to sleep late Friday night and slept in like crazy because I was like, okay, this is one night I can definitely sleep in. So um, I did, and I woke up to millions of messages and people posting throughout the Discord and on X about this, awesome new plan. And it's kind of funny because like I was so determined to do it right. Like I didn't want to open up the slides, so I waited until I went and got coffee, which took me a little bit. But I eventually got coffee and made time to look at the slides, and it was pretty epic.
So the lesson is you should not go to sleep, right?
Yeah, something like that, or just have more coffee. I'm not sure what.
So we used to try. We used to climb always. I'm at Starbucks. I'm trading in line. I'm at Starbucks. I'm in the drive-through. I'm trading. I'm like, she climb like.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of options trading at Starbucks line.
Yeah, his favorite trading spot. All right, so Metaplanet dropped a bomb on us earlier this week. I was sleeping too on it, to be honest, so I have nothing to say. Um, for those of you who don't know, Metaplanet is a Bitcoin treasury company, and they are leveraging the capital markets with the ultimate goal to raise their Bitcoin holdings and grow the Bitcoin per share, the metric that will guide all their decisions, future decisions. Oops. Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
All right, yeah. So they've upped their guidance, by a little bit. So they're let's see, now by the end of 2027, their goal is to join the 1% club to have 210,000 Bitcoin, and I think that they will achieve that. I'm personally pretty confident, just my views, but. They changed their 2026 target. So they set these goals, the 2025 end of year and 2026 end of year, pretty much at the start of the year. At the start of this year, they set before a 10,000 for 2025 and 21,000 for 2026. Well, now they've upped their 21,000 for 2026 all the way up to 100,000 Bitcoin.
Nuts.
And I'm not saying it'll happen in 2025, but I would give it at least a 10% chance that they see 100,000 Bitcoin in 2025.
Yeah,
It
we'll
doesn't
talk.
need to happen, but it's possible.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one like a bit later, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're issuing, their last plan was 210 million shares, and then this plan is 555 million shares, and they currently have about 750 million shares out or fully diluted.
Yeah, that leads us into this slide right here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, they 759 million shares fully diluted. This plan takes them, over a billion shares, 1.3, I guess. And then they still have a little bit of wiggle room. So they can essentially, the way it works in Japan is they have to hold a shareholder meeting, which the one typically occurs in March, but they can also hold like an extraordinary meeting of shareholders anytime. I think it's just a lot to like set it up and everything.
Right.
Probably takes a little bit of time. And then they can 4x their share count cap, like their foreseeable cap, and that's what they did last year, and then they upped it a little bit as well in March. So when they had around, I guess around 400 million, it was different because it was pre-split, but the equivalent in today's numbers, they had around 400 million shares, I guess, and so then they quadrupled that, not making those shares realized, but just enabling it, enabling less red tape. So now they can just announce the plans that essentially fit inside of that sort of upper limit of current upper limit of share count.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So they have almost 9,000 Bitcoin now, 8888, which is pretty cool, especially since they hit 5555 not long ago, just a few weeks ago. So by the end of this year, there's different estimates you'll see in these slides, and these are from their, most of these slides are from their slide deck that came out, Friday night or Saturday morning. Again, their fiscal year 2026, which is just the end of the year, goal is 100,000. 2027 is 210,000. And 2025, like I said, you'll see different estimates, but this kind of puts it around like the 38, 39,000 range right here.
But as we'll see at the, I don't think, I wouldn't be surprised if we reach like 50K, 60K before the end of the year. We'll have that math,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
A couple of things I want to point out here. So you mentioned 8888, and then 5555. There's a lot of symbolism going on in the Bitcoin community, but especially on Metaplanet. Like we saw Simon, flashing the 8 ball before they announced the 8888 HODL. And also before that, we were at 5555 for a while. So 5 in Japanese is go, and if you have 555, like 555 million shares, that's go go go. Means like like pedal to metal, let's go, right? So there's I can't help but think that there's a lot of this kind of symbolism, like they're just kind of um expressing the aggression that with which they're going to acquire Bitcoin in the short term, the medium term.
Yeah, and these numbers are like they're captivating numbers too. I mean, I
Yeah.
love numbers anyway, but they're easy to remember. They really pop when you see them, and I like that they kind of land on some of those numbers that are a lot more fun to look at.
Yeah, and 8 also in Asian culture, like is a sign of luck, prosperity. So not a coincidence. Not nothing is done by coincidence. I don't believe so. All right. All right. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, so they were in 11th place. This is looking at the rankings of publicly traded companies all over the world and how many Bitcoin they have. So just first to 10th. So they were 11th. It passed. I think it was Block with their last purchase, I suppose. So now they're just under Coinbase. And then there's a lot of miners that are kind of clustered together. So there's basically 5. Let's see, how do I say this? So number 9 is Coinbase. Number 5 is Galaxy. And those are really close together. So you have like between essentially 9,000 and like 13,000 Bitcoin that are in such a tight cluster that Metaplanet is just going to leap, not in like one buy, but in like 2 or 3 or 4 buys, they will be in 5th place. And everyone else, like most of these other guys are standing still. So they're going to go from 10th to 5th in a number of weeks here, whether it's, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, but something like that, I think.
So what you're saying is when I go and update the Sweep in the future, I need to place like 5 of these companies on the same door.
Yeah, I mean, might as well, because like you don't have enough doors there, so
You heard
you need
you
more
heard that
doors.
you heard that Metaplanet? Make it happen. 5 on the same
That's
door.
right.
All right. Exponential log. Tell us about this. I know you love these charts.
Yeah, I love these charts. So this is a log chart showing the exponential growth of, or sorry, this is a linear chart showing the exponential growth of their Bitcoin holdings. They started about 14 months ago, last April. This also shows that their days to double is about 62, and that's extremely consistent. I looked, and if you start, they started around 100 Bitcoin last April, and essentially every 62 days, they're doubling their Bitcoin. And so they've done 6 doubles essentially. If you take it from the first base of 100, 2 to the 6th power, 64. So that's 6,400 Bitcoin, and they're above that now, of course. So they've done more than 6, 6.25 doubles or something like that. And they're not slowing down. And the interesting thing is all their doubles, from that base, like the fastest double was 35 days. The slowest I think was around 85, but it's not like consistently getting slower. It's just, up and down and up and down, but it's staying smooth enough that over 14 months, 36 separate purchase announcements of Bitcoin. And, a lot of the new competition doesn't have that sort of history that you can look at. And for me, that's important. I need to be able to look at it just personally to be able to extrapolate into the future and say, yeah, things are going to slow down at some point. Like there's reality, there's friction, there's limits, whatever. But this is how they've been executing. This is what I can expect. Some version of this, is what I can expect out of the future. Super important to me.
The precision of the execution is uncanny. We're talking. How is it exponential like this? Like, are they doing this on purpose? I think they are.
Yeah, I joke that that Simon's like sort of the,
Yeah.
he has an applied math degree, so like he's applying his math for sure. Like
Yeah.
he is putting it to work. So he's keeping everything really close,
Yep.
sort of inside a tight band there.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, so this is the same thing. It's just on a log chart, and it's easier for me to see. If you put it on a straight line on a log chart, is easier to verify as a consistent exponential than just something that hockey sticks up, sort of. So I really appreciate this chart, and if you made bands around that, it's really hard to stay inside an exponential band like that, and they've managed to do it since they had 100 Bitcoin. If you drew this line out 6 or 7 months ago, it's essentially still pointing in the same direction that they ended up going.
Yeah.
That says a lot about their execution, consistency, trust, and what you can extrapolate into the future, I think.
Yeah. We'll talk about that more about that in a little bit too.
So this is a little fuzzy, and the reason is I got this off of YouTube. Bitcoin for Corporations, I think, has a channel, and this is on the Nakamoto stage. But Simon gave a talk, and so this was off to the side. While they double their Bitcoin on average every 62 days, I care a lot more. I mean, I like that they're collecting Bitcoin. That's the game. But if they had like a 1 mNAV, and if they're doubling their Bitcoin but doubling their share count, then I don't earn anything from like a Bitcoin per share, right? Nothing improves. So yeah, so I really care about the time for them to double their Bitcoin per share. And so they're doubling their Bitcoin about every 62 days. They're doubling their Bitcoin per share just as consistently about every 92 days. And so that represents that friction that you get from share dilution, that difference there. But that's impressive. Like every 3 months, doubling. I mean, I could talk, for days about that, how to think about mNAV in those terms and stuff, getting into months to cover. There's so much that you can go into, but yeah, just for now, I mean, that 92 days and looking how straight that line is, that's super impressive.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is cool because, and this is showing, let's see, this is showing essentially from the start, from like near the start or from a year ago, I think. So they had 141 Bitcoin. They started with like 97, so this is probably like a month or two into it. Now they have 8,888. So they've 63x'd their Bitcoin holdings. And then in blue, you see their share count, their fully diluted share count. and they've 3.33x'd their share count, adding 233%, right? So
Yeah.
More than tripling their share count, having 63 times their Bitcoin. And you did the math the other day, right? Do you remember what that was?
Yeah, so 63 divided by 3.33, it was about 19. So they basically
Yeah.
19x'd their BTC per share since then.
Yeah. So like if another way to think about that real quick is like if they had been trading at a 19 mNAV, they would be at the same price today if today they were trading at a 1 mNAV.
Yeah, like if mNAV just caught up, if the NAV just caught up to the mNAV.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, stock price being held constant. Yeah, insane. This one is very interesting. So this is the BTC yield per quarter, but what I want to point out is that the metric they're showing, yeah, it's impressive. It's more than the 35% that they've been guiding, right? But this is actually looking at fully diluted shares. Fully diluted shares. So fully diluted shares is basically all the shares are, could be exercised via warrants, stock options, and that haven't been printed yet, basically. And when you look at that metric, it's the best shareholder protective metric you can look at versus just the shares outstanding. And them being able to grow BTC yield by that much, almost, you could, it is exponential. You could put an exponential curve on this, by that much, and you're still measuring against fully diluted shares, which is all the shares that could be printed or called, or will be called in the future, or will be printed in the future, then that's really impressive in my opinion.
Yeah, that's and you'll see different things like on different websites. Some people use shares outstanding for the Bitcoin per share. Some people use fully diluted. So this is totally what you're saying. It's the most conservative way to look at it.
All right. All right. So when they announced the 555 million plan, when you woke up, when I woke up, when we both looked at the plan, we both went, at least I went like this. I went Nani, and this is Dylan, by the way. That's how I imagine him to like say like what the heck, So yeah, like what the heck, 555. I didn't think they would come up with a plan that soon and that huge. We're gonna be unpacking this one soon. Ready?
Yeah, totally.
All right, go ahead, man.
Cool. Okay. So, and I was, their last plan was 210 million shares. I sort of expected 420, just a simple double, similar to what Strategy did with sort of like the 21 million plan, the 42 million plan, or whatever it's called, right? Woke up and saw 555, which is nice because they are able to, sell so many shares so quickly when the market, is giving them strong mNAV, strong volume, um, and I think we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, 555 million shares. So to put that in perspective again, like there's 750 something million shares fully diluted right now, 600 million outstanding. So that's going to less than double their share count.
Right.
It looks like they can start with this plan essentially June 24th. And they have 3 different series of stock acquisition rights for the moving strike warrants. They just finished 13 through 17, which had 42 million each, making up the 210 million plan for the previous plan. And then now I forget what the math is, but whatever 555 divided by 3 is,
180.
that is the 180,
Yeah.
185, something like that. So yeah, and the cool thing here, actually, yeah, we'll talk about that in another slide. But instead of looking at the last day's closing price like their 210 million plan did, now this one's going to be a little bit more dynamic and interesting, and we'll try to dig into this more in the future.
Yeah.
But it's going to look at a 3-day average closing price. So, yeah.
One thing I want to touch upon on this chart is the moving strike warrant. So for those of you who don't know what a moving strike warrant is, it's like in Japan they can't do an ATM like a Western style USA style like we do over here. It's like, hey, we're allowed 300 million shares, just go ahead and print them over 3 years, but if you do it in 3 months, you're okay. In Japan, there's a lot of consumer protection by the authorities. And so, before you do any of this, you need to go out to the authorities and say, hey, this is our plan. This is what we want to do. We want to dilute, within reason, and you have to show them that you have a plan, and then they'll agree. But the moving strike warrant is basically they partner with Evil Fund, which is mentioned at the top of this table here, which is a Cayman Island incorporated company that's been the partner of Metaplanet for a while now. So they partner with Evil Fund. They basically give Evil Fund the warrants, and Evil Fund holds the warrants, and then it used to be every trading day, but now it's going to be every 3 trading days. They're going to take the average closing price of these 3 trading days, and then decide, come up with calculate that out into a strike price. And Evil Fund has the choice to. It's my understanding that they have two mechanisms to go about it. Like they could exercise the warrant right away. Just give Metaplanet the money to get their shares, and then in the T+2 settlement time frame, and then they would go ahead and sell those shares like later on, a couple of days later once they get it. That's what I understand. So if I have it wrong, somebody let me know. And then the second one, which that Climb and I were holding on to, is the pre-selling, which is almost like naked shorting, but not really, where they would say, okay, well, I'm going to sell, like today's a good day, today's a good, like the stock is rocketing up like 15%. Evo sells the shares, basically entering a short position, but a short position, and they go ahead and exercise the warrants at yesterday's price. And the shares don't get delivered until T+2, so they may be sitting just on a short position for a couple of days until the shares are delivered in their hands, and then give the money to Metaplanet, and they pocket that spread, that difference between the sell price and then the strike price.
Yeah, and the other thing it says here is Series 20 is 100%, which means like a zero sort of a zero fee warrant. So whatever the base price is, which is the 3-day average closing price here, that's exactly what Metaplanet will get when those shares are sold. And then, but for the first time ever in Japan, and maybe in Asia, I'm not sure, for moving strike warrants, they actually will get paid a premium on top of the 3-day average closing price. So Evo Fund still makes money. Essentially, Evo Fund's going to make less money, and then more money goes to Metaplanet. On average, with these 3 series, on average 1% more, which is just a nice little bonus in a first, in Japan, which is super, super cool.
Yeah. So in the warrants, what that means is that once your strike price is calculated, we're going to take the 100% the strike price, but we're going to bump it up by 1% or 2%. So the next day when market opens, like their Evo is going to be holding on to the warrant, but their warrant is not going to be in the money. They're going to be like 1%, 2% out the money, and they're going to have to wait for that to go in the money so they can make a profit. So that should also reduce the amount of aggressive selling that they do. Um, we talk about accretive dilution, not dilution, then accretive dilution in terms of Bitcoin. But this is a new style of warrant that's basically protective. So it's protective for the shareholder. So and Metaplanet gets paid a little more too. So it's like protective accretive dilution, right? We came up with that. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, so it's the first. Usually, moving strike warrants are like a death spiral, like a whirlpool. Like if a company in Japan issues like moving strike warrants, they usually are facing financial difficulties, and they're basically like raising money. They're selling for cheap at a discount. Usually are issued at a discount, like like 5. I've seen like a 10% discount. They sell their shares at 10% discounts, and then they take that money to just survive, which is basically destroying shareholder value, and just spiraling downwards into a cycle that they can't get out of. So usually when a company announces that they're doing moving strike warrants, like it's not a good sign. But here, Metaplanet has just been outperforming and just straight up killing it, with this.
Yeah. And that initial moving strike price, the 1388, and there's some like really fine details of this that I don't know yet, and I hope to find a good resource to learn some of the really fine stuff. But my understanding is if they trade under, if the stock trades under 1388 yen at any time during this plan, then that month, either while it's trading or if it trades under that, I'm not sure, but they're limited to 10% dilution. I believe that 10% dilution
Yeah.
for that month is based on like the 600 million shares out, like the shares outstanding at the time
Right.
of the plan, I believe is the basis. And we saw that happen in April, where they could only dilute 10%.
Right.
But then May they diluted way more than that in like 11 trading days. So it's not a hard cap. It's just there to protect shareholders in case the stock is like suffering and they're trying to dilute at the same time, right? So
Yeah.
you want to dilute into strength basically.
Yeah, diluting strength. This, which has been basically their motto, and I'm sure Evil Fund is so happy with this because they're basically, we talked about this, like what we say, like they're like just sitting here and collecting money, right, and giving it back to Metaplanet, collecting on the spread.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
they have essentially a risk-free a spread there, but
yeah,
they're serving a purpose. So
yeah, we'll get back to that too. There's also an interesting clause in there, the price floor. So below 777, I don't know if that's a symbol or not, but below 777 yen, Evil Fund is not allowed to do any sale. So it's basically okay, like enough is enough. Like the stock's been beat up, and can't be beating it while it's down. So interesting to see
yeah,
that.
yep. And then
Um,
yeah, and then they can give a 5-day notice and say, you know what, hey, maybe we entered the bear market before we thought, or something like that. Maybe there's mNAV compression, who knows? But for whatever reason, if Simon and Dylan and other people at Metaplanet want to stop pause this plan, they can do so with a 5-day notice. That's
yeah,
just to protect everyone too.
yeah. There's also another clause. It's not on here, but the Evil Fund, with I believe they're just allotted like a bunch of like those MSWs, like the warrants. They just hold them. They're not allowed to sell them to like third parties without approval from the board. So, it's not like they can just go and dish them out and be like, "Hey, you guys want some warrants from Metaplanet?" No, they have to. It's a very strict process. They have to actually like submit a requisition, to the board, and then the board has to approve so they can transfer or sell those warrants. So everything's being pretty tightly controlled. I believe. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right.
Oh
Go
yeah,
ahead.
so this is super cool. When people talk about hitting the ATM and all the FUD that's with other companies, let's say, but here is what Metaplanet uh, aims for, is the best way to put it. So if you look at again, what we mentioned earlier is if a company is at 1 mNAV, they might double their Bitcoin holdings, but they're also doubling their share count. If they're doing it with share issuance, right? So they're not getting anywhere from a Bitcoin yield perspective, which is just how much Bitcoin per share increases. Metaplanet, on the other hand, and there's tons of, like, I've saved clips. There's tons of clips from Dylan and Simon talking about how careful they are. They say, obviously we can't control share price, but they are very careful to design the moving strike warrants where the selling pressure, where they sell into strength. And they want, for so many reasons, better for them, better for us, better for the stock, to sell new shares at a higher mNAV. If you're trading at a 10 mNAV and if you dilute 10% of your shares at a 10 mNAV, then you just doubled your Bitcoin and you only had 10% friction of like 10% new shares, 100% more Bitcoin. So that's all, roughly, like, the math is a little funny, but roughly a 90% yield. So this shows once they reach 30,000 Bitcoin, how much yield that will be, depending on sort of the average mNAV between now and that point, right? And it also shows they have something called a target accretion window, which here they show kind of between like 3 and 6 mNAV, and it's really kind of like 3 and beyond, right? So they do their best to only sell, higher than 3 mNAV, and you can see here that at like a 5 mNAV, that's something like 130% yield by the time they reach 30,000 Bitcoin. If they were like a 2 mNAV or something, then that would only be about 50% yield. So it's such a huge difference in what you get. And I think a lot of people are going to kind of learn to think less about the actual Bitcoin and more about really that Bitcoin per share increase.
Yeah.
It's all relative to yesterday, right? But like how much it increases.
Yeah. This curve actually reminds me almost like in options trading, like the theta decay curve. But if you look at the target accretion window and you go from uh 6, I think we're like at 7 on Friday, and the stock's been running like crazy today. I haven't even checked, but we're at 7. If you go from 7 to 4, you basically, your flywheel is spinning quickly still, and you're collecting a huge spread. You're collecting that spread between the high mNAV and the lower mNAV, and like transferring that spread right onto the balance sheet instantly. But it's much more accretive to do that, and keep and then to keep the high mNAV as well. It's much more accretive than if Climbs went like Climb said, if you're just going from like a 2 to like 1.5, you're not going to accrete as much, and then you're also going to damper a little bit the performance of the stock and its volatility.
Yeah, it's really cool, like learning this math, and then also uh, understanding and respecting like how much Simon, Dylan, and the team aim for, dilution, and why, how much they care about shareholders in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Go ahead, man.
So, oh yeah, so on the disclosure that we were at a few slides ago, like it showed uh, that this plan technically has like a 2-year window, but instead of just calling this a 2-year plan, like they're giving some sort of a timeline here, some rough guidance that they could see this being a 6 to 10 month plan. And so that puts us pretty much at the end of this year. I mean, the end of this year, beginning of next year. Um, and if you think about the current share price, let's just call it $10, and they're selling 555 million shares, that would be, $5.55 billion. Their current Bitcoin holdings are like just right under $1 billion. So if price just stays where it is on average, like if the average share over this whole time, as they're getting more Bitcoin per share, if the average share price that they do all the selling into is $10, then that's enough to buy about 50,000 more Bitcoin. Um, if the average price ends up being $20, as the Bitcoin per share increases and mNAV, uh, but more sort of mNAV gets baked in, if you can think of it like that. It could be that the average price is $20 during this plan, and that's sort of what I'm anticipating. I mean, 10 would be awesome. 10's fine. 20 would be amazing, and that's sort of where I'm at, probably with a loose estimate. And if they could sell for an average of $20, then that puts them at buying 100,000 Bitcoin on top of the almost 9,000 they have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Which would put them in a very strong second place on that
The
company
leaderboard.
listing, that we had, yeah. So, and all this is not happening in years. This isn't a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, and that would be cool if it was, but like it's not. It's a it's a 2-year plan that they sort of anticipate being more like 6 to 10 months, and I'm pretty sure those are sandbag numbers. Like that, I consider those sandbag numbers. I think that would be consistent with what they tend to do. Under promise, over deliver.
Mm-hmm.
But they've certainly upped their guidance from where it was 6 months ago to much more um, to numbers that make a lot more sense with what they've been able to do, what they've really proven to the market now, having almost 10,000 Bitcoin. 10,000 at the end of the year is not where we're at anymore. Like those conversations are old. Like anyone that thinks we'll stop at 10,000 or something is not looking at the math. So
Yeah, so they were guiding 35% increase of BTC yield like per quarter, right? BTC yield 35% per quarter, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, I think we're at Are we at 232 today or 230?
Something like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
either like 225 or 230,
like
something like that.
not even Q2. Q2 is not even over. We're at like 232%. Now they're saying 600%. I wouldn't be
That's
surprised
cool.
if yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this was another under promise, and that we may see like another over delivery again.
Yeah, I think that the math is probably something like roughly like a 3 to 4 fold Bitcoin per share from where we are today.
Mhm.
So it's this is kind of rough, but something like that.
Okay, last one we talked about that already. The premium for the
Yeah.
shareholders. Yeah, volume. I know every time we talk, man, you're like all about volume.
Yeah, it's just like I've said before, it's the thing that I used to think was boring. I think most people think it's boring. Most people just care about stock price, let's be honest, but like volume is such a huge factor even for companies that existed before these LBEs, right? But with these specifically, when you're looking at the mechanics for accretive dilution, the two variables that it really comes down to are mNAV, and that's sort of like a dilution efficiency you could think of, like how much friction there is. The lower it is, the more friction there is, and then volume. How can you sell 555 million shares if you're trading 5 million shares a day or 10 million shares a day?
Yeah, not enough.
Then it would be a 5-year plan. Yeah, it would be pretty crazy. So like this shows that their volume has been very consistently going up, and that's not even looking at like U.S. volume. That's not discounting days that they hit up limits or down limits. Like these aren't even the real numbers, like as far as I'm concerned, because I would throw out all the days where they hit those limits and just look at the days where they don't, and I'm sure those numbers are a lot higher. And then yeah, so then the bottom part of this shows basically that that's sort of where they came up with the 6 to 10 month time frame. They looked at the 210 million plan, and let's see if I can say this right. The participation rate was 7.5%, and what that means is that on the average day during the time frame of that plan, on the average day, I'm not sure if it's the average day that they sold any or just the average day in general, but they sold on average 7.5% of the volume. So like if there were 100 million shares traded, then they sold 7.5 million shares on average. That's my understanding of it. So they're basically saying if we did that going forward with the 555 plan, based on the 6-month average of 47 million shares per day, it would take us 157 trading days. If you look at like all the way over to the right, where it's the 1-month number, 71 million shares per day, and I mean we saw 170 million shares recently. Then it would only take them like 100 days, 100 trading days, which would definitely put it into this year.
Yeah, those numbers are skewed with a bit of recency because we had insane volume like in May, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's and then looking at the participation rate. I think I remember if we look at strategy, I think Saylor was saying that the average sell volume or ATM volume was like 3% per day. This one's like 7.5% of the volume. That's quite a lot, and the stock has still been having this kind of performance over the last 6 months.
Yeah. Real quick on that. And I've talked about this before. So if you look at May 1st, I guess, to May 19th, like the first 11 trading days of May, they sold 101 million of their last 210 million plan. They sold 101 million in 11 trading days.
Half of it.
And yeah, almost half of it in 11 trading days. So, think about that. 11 trading days, they sold almost 10 million shares per day. And if they did that for the 555 plan, that would only take them 50. I'm not saying that'll happen, but like if it stayed at that rate, that would be 55 trading days. Like that would blow these numbers out of the water. And
Yeah.
guess what? Like the stock went up every day against that.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Like think about that. I mean, think about how hungry the market is for this. It's really cool, and it's sustained. It's not just like this is the hot ticker today, and no one cares about it tomorrow. It's constantly sort of increasing its fame, its volume. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, just today, actually, before we got on air, I saw a post from Simon. Metaplanet is making the news in Japan again, like number one traded ticker or something. Everybody's they're all asking the questions, like what's going on with this, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
It's
It's yeah,
fun. It's so
it's
funny.
positive feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, go ahead with this one.
So June 3rd, and this is I think that's the day where we hit like 170 million shares, and then at a higher price too than we had been before. So like that was 222 billion yen of trading volume, and so they traded more on the Tokyo Stock Exchange than Mitsubishi, certainly than like Toyota. It didn't even make the list, but all these companies that are orders of magnitude larger in market cap. And this isn't just like a share count. Like they had the most shares traded, but they also had the most yen denomination, of value traded on that day. They crushed everybody.
Yeah.
And those days are becoming more likely. Like I think they've only had like not maybe it's 9 or 10 trading days since they started this that traded more than 100 million shares in Japan. And now they're just becoming like more frequent. It's really neat to look at that math.
And just for perspective, like we're looking at the rest of the leaderboard. Those are all like heavyweights, in Japan. Like those are not like just like tiny like small cap companies. We're talking about like some of the largest companies in Japan right now, and yeah, their turnover being like number one. It's kind of crazy for $5 billion market cap company.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're still small. I mean, they're higher than they were a month ago, but they're still tiny.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you love this chart. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So here's looking at mNAV history, and when they were really really small. I mean, keep in mind when they started this program last April and had less than 100 Bitcoin. I think like I don't know if it was like right when they announced it, but like right around that time, they were a $14 million company. That was their market cap. All their shares, $14 million. And last month they were selling more than $14 million worth of shares to the market every day for 11 straight days, probably twice that. Twice their market cap from 14 months ago. But looking at this mNAV history, you see how strong it is. And for some slides that are going to come after this, they've just sort of like drawn out like, okay, what if we're at 6 mNAV now, and then for the rest of the year that kind of drifts down sort of towards 5, or what if we're at 5 and that drifts down towards 4, and so on, right? Or even what if we're at 2? So they have 5 different sort of potential paths outlined to show some predictions, just how the math could go essentially in some of the later slides.
Yeah, I think the later slide actually explains that point a little bit easier, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to it. This is the time clock app that the builders have developed. This is kind of funny because I was talking to Simon at the Bitcoin conference, and I showed him. I pulled up this on my phone. I'm like, hey, look, like some of the Discord members made this app because we were tired of flipping through different brokers and pages to look at DN3, MTPLF, and 3350, and and then that problem got solved. And then there was like, oh, but we're looking at dollars and yens and euros, like and so the team got to work, and they built in the price conversion and referencing euro yen and then euro yen and dollar yen, um embedded all of that into that, and then you just press with your fingers. And so Simon was on the phone, like just clicking on my phone he's like, oh, pretty cool. I thought it was neat.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how dynamic like that. I mean, that was created like some of us were just talking about like it'd be neat to have sort of like a clock app where you could see, instead of everyone having to continually ask what hours things open and stuff, you can literally just see, and then to have something that moves across. And then we had one guy designed it, and everyone's all over the world.
Hmm.
The guy who designed the first version, not the app, but the first version, 21 Machiavelli. I think he's like 20 years old. And I mean, has a full-time job and everything. And then he just came home and wanted to work on it. Like he just did it. And then Naya is,
Yeah.
yeah, so they ended up building on top of that and making a web app. And like, just sort of like just did it. You don't have to twist anyone's arm. People are just
Yep.
volunteering, and that speaks a lot to like, yeah, the community and just the the staying power, similar to the volume staying power. Shares traded. This isn't just something that people trade today and then they leave tomorrow.
No,
This
no,
is something that's growing. Yeah.
not at all. Even Nia also made a price modeling website. Right, he coded all of that, right, and posted it online for free for everybody. And so, we have a separate builder chat, like dev chat for these contributors. And sometimes I take a look in there. I mean, it's not my place to be in there. I have no business being in there, but sometimes I take a look to see what they're talking about. And like, if you can imagine the gif of like the looking at the math but not like being really confused, like, yeah, that's my face when I look at that chat. Like they just talk in a foreign language. But yeah, they're amazing overall, amazing, crowdsourced volunteers. Like nobody's even asking for this. They just out of their own free will, like just like brought these out to the community. And um talking more about that tool, I think Naya's getting a kick out of it because he keeps checking the statistics. He's like, hey man, he showed me the other day, it's like 65% of users like are Japanese. And then I went onto X to I took a stroll on X to see what was going on, and yeah, sure enough, they're sharing it on X. And I was reading the comments. They're like, "Oh, can you no, here's the clock website. Oh, can I read in yen? Is it priced in yen?" And it's like, yeah, it's in yen. Like they're all super excited about it. So I Japan loves it. Good job.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so this takes the sort of, let's call it the starting position, like the starting line. The red, kind of obviously is the history, and this is a log chart of Bitcoin holdings. So the red is the historic holdings, and then where the red stops, that's today, right? Essentially, over the other day, and then it extrapolates out. Um, Actually, yeah, go to the next slide because it has the note, but
Yeah,
it
as you know.
extrapolates. Okay. It extrapolates out not like if we were at 6 mNAV the whole time, but like that top green line is if we were at 6 today and then a little bit less tomorrow and a little bit less the next day and drift down to about 5 and sort of, drift down for each one of these starting positions. Um, and again, this chart ends at the end of this year. And so they're basically saying, based on sort of these starting mNAVs, even assuming that they drift down, which is what like my model did, and some other people had very similar models that like did the same thing, like less mNAV every month, every day, what however you want to do it. Like just imagine that it sort of dissipates a little bit as the company gets larger, which is pretty rational.
Hmm.
And then imagine that the dilution also is less of a percentage on average every month as the company gets larger. And that's what they did as well. So it's really neat to see like the way they did it, and that puts us, ending the year, you know, between 22 and 103,000 Bitcoin, the end of 2025, not 2026.
Yep.
And a lot of us have kind of had that estimate of let's call it 35 to 50 or 40 to 50,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year, and they just keep blowing us out of the water. Like I thought that they would hit 10,000 July 16th. I think that's what my model from like 5 or 6 weeks ago showed. And I mean, they're almost at 10,000 now. They'll hit 10,000 in June, pretty much for sure.
Yeah. As Sailor would say, man, all your models are broken.
Yeah,
I,
yeah, you keep having to catch up. Yeah.
yeah, like you make. I remember you made a model and you're like, oh man, now I have to go review it. Like I have to go update my numbers.
Yeah, and I haven't had time. Like I'll work on that soon. I know a lot of other people are doing it too, so there's a
Yeah.
lot out there. Yeah, so this shows the same thing, just from kind of right around today as the starting day, and then on a linear chart, what that sort of Bitcoin, what the Bitcoin holdings might do at sort of different starting mNAVs, with all of them having mNAVs that drop a little bit over time.
Okay. Oh, I love this sheet. So I like checking the balance sheet of the company over time to see what's going on. And as Klein stated earlier, in April 2024, when they started this whole treasury strategy, they basically used like $6 million that they had on hand. I think they just smash bought Bitcoin with it. for 97 total. And then a couple months later, so they had no debt. And then a couple of months later, they went ahead and took out $6 million in bond, I believe, from Evo. Like in a, I think they actually paid, it was a 0.5% coupon on that one, if I'm not mistaken, Klein.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
right. And I think that's
yeah,
the Japanese
yeah.
interest rate.
Yeah, which is quite different these days. They're getting those from Evo at 0%, right? And we'll talk about that. So they got that bond out. They took the money, smash bought Bitcoin, but that instantly like put them in at a 72% leverage ratio, which is pretty high. But they went to work and started maybe doing the moving strike warrants afterwards to kind of decrease that leverage ratio over time. Um, for the next for the rest of the year. Now, a week ago, we were still no. Right now, we're at 9% leverage ratio. A week ago, we were still at 1 or 2%, something ridiculously low, like no depth on the balance sheet whatsoever. But I think after we completed the last round of moving strike warrants, like SARs. And before this new one round was issued or announced, basically, I think the stock was stuck. Well, the Evo was stuck. Like Evo couldn't do anything, right? So they couldn't harvest the premium and the mNAV, and the mNAV was like shooting up with the stock price going up. So I think what happened is that Metaplanet basically went to Evo. Is like, hey, bro, hey, can I borrow like $70 million? And no, trust me, bro, I'm good for it. And then Evo's like, yeah, just issue those bonds for 0% coupon. People have asked, like, why would you issue a bond? Why would you like loan money to someone for 0%? Like, what are you getting? Well, they get exclusivity on these moving strike warrants, right? They get all the benefits from it. So it's kind of like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Uh, you know, trust me, bro. Yeah, but they've had that relationship going on for a year now. But yeah, we were surmising with Climb that those two bonds were basically a kind of like a bridge measure to harvest the premium, the mNAV, while it was still hot, right? Because you don't want to wait too long.
Yes, they're pulling the future forward. They're bridging that, I think a few people have called it like a bridge, right? So they're bridging the gap between uh, the May 19th ending of the 210 million share issuance plan and the June 24th, I think, when the next one kind of officially starts, 23rd or 24th. So, over a month there. And so what they basically did is just said, you know what, we want more Bitcoin, and we're gonna pay back that loan, or be able to pay back the loan as quickly as they want once they start selling shares again. And I think that they still had a little bit of cash left over from some sales like May 18th and May 19th, perhaps. Since they bought more Bitcoin on May 19th, I think they probably couldn't have used the money that was raised on May 19th to do that. I think it typically maybe takes like a day or something
Yeah, it was like
to get that money.
it was like 120 million or so, right? Like total.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so they borrow 71 million in ordinary bonds, 0%, and then they bought like 120 something million in Bitcoin, which is really really neat.
Yeah. A point too I wanted to make, that bond that was taken out in June 2024 had a maturity date of the end of June. But that's 1 year sounds like not too much time, but I think they've were able to raise enough capital to pay it back. So okay,
Yeah, they kind of roll these like they'll pay them off and then issue new ones, and it kind of resets the clock on that
yeah,
short-term debt too.
keep refinancing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. We love this part with Climb and I. We talk about it all the time. We have, we like talking about options. So in Q4 2024, Metaplanet basically started making making income via a new way, and that was selling cash secured puts. So before that, it was only the hotel income, and the hotel in compare pales. We'll see in the later slides. The hotel pales in comparison to the cash secured put, and the cash secured put is two two advantages. So for those of you who don't know, for options, when you do sell a cash secured put, you basically saying you're selling a put to somebody who buys your put. You're selling insurance for them against price being like tanking. So they pay you the fee. you take on the risk. They have the you both have a contract, and if you sell the put on Bitcoin tanks, then it is your obligation, because you sold the insurance. It is your obligation to take possession of that Bitcoin from the buyer of the put. They hold the put, so you take possession and you have to pay that money, right? The $62,000 per Bitcoin. So for the buyer of the put, it's like a protection. So it looks like they went ahead, and the timing of it is pretty cool, because we didn't get options on IBITs on the ETFs in the United States until November, I believe. But they were doing this back in October, and they went to Singapore to partner up with QCP Capital, which looks like it's an exchange. And they were able to stake 223 contracts, and for $14 million of collateral. So that was sitting in cash over there, and they're just selling the put, and they sold, it looks like, a 60 plus DTE, days to expiration. It's like December 27th expiration. It's pretty far out in time, so they're shielded from delta moves and gamma moves, and they're just sitting there and collecting theta. So Climb and I will always say, like, theta gang, you get paid while you sleep. Literally, like, when you sell options, you get paid while you sleep. And they went ahead 2 weeks later, or I don't know when that notice was, but a couple of weeks later, after they opened that trade, they went ahead and rolled up the strikes. So they sold the put for 62,000 per Bitcoin, but they went ahead and rolled up to 66,000 as Bitcoin was had a huge move up. So they basically rolled the strike up, pocket the difference in credit. The new put has a lower credit, so that you collect that difference in credit. And that goes right to the balance sheet. They can keep selling puts with more cash that way, and like, they're creating like more cash. Or they can go and buy, like, Smash Bitcoin. Looks like they went ahead and bought Bitcoin with it. They're showing it here. You had also something else that you wanted to talk about with the cash secured puts, and like your 5% thing, Climb.
Yeah, I'll try to remember. Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, right now, let's just round up and say they have about $1 billion of Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they tend to sort of hold back 5% of the cash raised for this cash secured put strategy. And two things there. So one thing is right now, if I had to guess, I mean, there's no good way for me to know, but if I had to guess, they probably have around 50 million in cash that is used to sell $50 million worth, essentially, of cash secured puts on Bitcoin. So they have the cash to buy the Bitcoin, if the price drops to the strike price of the puts, and they get to make money no matter what. They can always roll. They can get creative. They did a couple of these disclosures last year, and they don't do them anymore on the puts. So you can't like see every single, tiny move that they're making with that. It was I imagine it was just too tedious. And they don't want to get front ran on that specifically. But with the 555 plan, let's just go back and just sort of, for me, a conservative estimate would be that they sell the 555 million shares at like $10 a piece. And that's more than $5 billion raised. That's $5.5 billion raised. Allowing them to buy $5.5 billion of Bitcoin. Let's just say 5 billion Bitcoin, because they'll hold 5 or 10% back for cash secured puts. That is going to increase to $6 billion worth of Bitcoin. So now you look at 5% of 6 billion, and so currently they have let's just say 5% of 1 billion, maybe around $50 million devoted to this strategy that's constantly earning money day and night, 24/7.
Yeah.
And once they 6x their Bitcoin stack, they'll also 6x their income generation from cash secured puts, because they're not going to have $50 million anymore on that. They'll have like $300 million towards a strategy, maybe even 600 million, if they go heavier. And the other thing about that is, and kind of Vince, kind of like you talked about with their low debt to Bitcoin net asset value ratio. Like, I mean, it's like high for them right now, and it's at like 9%. Like, you look, a lot of other companies are like 20, in the 20s or teens or 20s or whatever, and that's just a normal day. But like, this is high for them at 9, still in the single digits. So if you think about the staying power, like, is this a conservative play to to me, this is like, I know maybe people won't agree with this, but I feel like this is the most conservative play out of all of the Bitcoin treasury companies. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, from that. They have less debt and they have more staying power because this put strategy isn't just a gimmick. If Bitcoin goes sideways for 6 months or a year or has a bear market, they're constantly, like, they already have it in place. They're working it every day, and they're constantly squeezing, making money off of the volatility of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that's not their main thing that they have, the accretive dilution is the main story. This is just, a small thing that gives them so much better staying power in any market. Yeah.
And then in relation to their company size, you think about Metaplanet being 22 employees, right? Then we'll see on the next few slides that the kind of income they're generating from the cash secure put. But literally, this cash secure put strategy, this option selling strategy in general, like it's a few clicks and then you're done. And obviously, they're executing this because Simon has a derivatives trading background from Goldman Sachs, and they're probably my my thoughts are he's teaming up with Dylan on this, and Dylan, like being great at reading on chain Bitcoin like analysis. They're probably teaming together and seeing and deciding on like, hey, this is the strike we're going to choose. This is the days to expiration we're going to choose, and yeah, let's roll. And you notice like none of these are short dated trades. It's just like take their time and do 60 plus, just collecting theta like very passively. And but yeah, like it doesn't take any operate, like there's no like there's very little friction for this income. Like they don't there's little operating cash flow other than the cash that you're staking as a collateral on the put. You don't need an extra office, an extra room for this. Like it's very efficient.
Yeah, in worst case, they end up buying Bitcoin or just rolling the puts down and out. It's not hard to do that. So
Yeah, which is what they
yeah,
were going to do in the first place. They're going to buy the Bitcoin, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, that would be a bad day. And then they still get the premium on top of that. Like, they get to buy at their strike price, plus they still collect the premium.
yeah,
So yeah, it's a really, really neat strategy.
yeah. This slide is basically a continuation of the previous one. So on the left here, Q4 2024 is when they started the Bitcoin put strategy, and that generated about $6 million, as you can see on the bottom left. Bottom left. And then for Q1 2025, it was about the same. So it's very consistent and predictable, especially if Bitcoin goes sideways or it goes up. If Bitcoin comes down, then it's a bit different. You may have to manage the put, and they're either going to sit there and take assignment, and once it reaches their strikes and expires, or they may just roll out and down and out if they want to. But I surmise that they would take the assignment because, hey, more Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah, probably so. And I mean, like, yeah, as the market cap gets bigger, as their as their Bitcoin holdings get bigger, like we talked about, like the 5 or 6 million a quarter doesn't sound like much now. It's going to be 30 million a quarter. Once they have 5 times the Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's gonna be
So
a
yeah,
cash cow.
yeah, and then Bitcoin goes up on top of that. So if Bitcoin goes to 200K, now they have twice. So you can think of things quite a few different ways there.
You know what would be even more degen, dude?
What's that?
If you, instead of doing a cash secured put, you do a margin secured put. You sell on margin.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Don't do that. I'm just kidding.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that. All right. Same. So this slide shows you how much the Bitcoin put strategy dwarfs the hotel business. So the hotel business has been fairly consistent. 80 million yen, but the Bitcoin put is almost like 10 times as much now as the hotel business, which is pretty insane. Like they didn't have to like add an extra department. They didn't have to add an extra building, acquire a branch somewhere, and they just entered in the contract with an exchange and to place their orders. And yeah, and then that's already their wheelhouse. Like Dylan, Simon, they already know how to do this stuff, right?
Yeah, they're milking Bitcoin vol and turning it into numbers on the balance sheet. And you know, uh, some people may not know if they're new here. Like, they used to be a hotel company. They had about 30 hotels. COVID really, really wrecked their business, and then last year they decided to pivot to a Bitcoin strategy. And now they just have one hotel, and they just keep it around. It's fun to keep around one hotel, right? But they're turning it into a Bitcoin hotel, and I think that they plan on. They also have like the license to Bitcoin Magazine in Japan.
Yep.
Yeah, so this isn't just like, hey, this is also a hotel company or something. They have one hotel. Like it's not a large obligation, and it's earning revenue. Even though I think they're still renovating some of the floors, so it's still earning revenue on the floors that aren't being updated. But yeah, they're turning it into a Bitcoin hotel and workshops. I think Bitcoin art. Like I don't know what all they have in the works, but they're going to do some interesting things with it. So
Yep. Okay. All right, and this is their slide. This is not ours. This is their slide of appreciation of the social media and the community at large here, the Metaplanet community. They gave shout outs to Metaplanet Madness, big group on X, the dojo, uh, the the table at the Bitcoin conference, their booth, their meet and greet was like packed. Like we were in line trying to get some hats. I got one, I got lucky, but it was like the hats were gone in like an instant. Like everybody was trying to snatch them. Their shareholder meetings, we don't have the previous slide, but after they started the Bitcoin treasury strategy, but that was a tiny meeting. I think it was like 10 people in the room, and now I'm being told I haven't been. I'd like to go, but I hear that it's standing room only. uh like standing room only, like you can't sit down. It's like packed to the gills, and Simon and Dylan and the team are standing there just for 2 hours, just greeting people and talking to them and the shareholders, and shaking their hands and signing autographs. So it's taking pictures. I think it's really good how close to the community they are. This slide here is just there. This slide has all the X profiles combined on here, and I want to say that they are very accessible as people, and they came to the meetup that I organized. I didn't even have to like I have no way of I didn't reach out to them. No, this was just for Discord, but they showed up, and Julie, her name is, shows that she has community engagement manager. Like she's pretty. They're really like on the ground, in touch with their shareholder base, and they want to make sure that they get some feedback from them. So I think that's pretty cool. Kind of like the future of shareholder investor relations, in my opinion.
yeah, and they crashed your party like you said earlier, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was,
Unexpectedly. That's pretty
yeah,
neat.
that was funny. And then of course, if you haven't checked it out, like they acknowledged all the content that's been put out. Like we see here with Richard Byworth, we see here with Tim Kautzman, like Natalie Brunel, all these interviews, like they go out and they spread the word, and they spread their mission, and they talk about it, and then they go home and then they execute it, right? So um, good transparency, good communication. They're visible. We like it. I like it. You like it, Glenn?
Yeah, and their consistency of messaging too. Like if you've seen, like probably a few, not everyone, I'm sure, but like a few of us at least. Maybe 1 or 2% of us have seen like all of these interviews and like all the ones related to Metaplanet. Anyway, like I haven't seen all of Dylan's work before Metaplanet, but just some of it. But it's amazing how consistent the messaging is, even from the days when they only had 100 Bitcoin on the balance sheet. They've stayed extremely consistent about understanding how to be careful with mNAV, understanding how to grow shareholder value, and the messaging itself, right? I mean, it's I don't know. I really really appreciate Simon and Dylan and the team. Like it's it's fun. It's strange how fun it is when there's a new podcast to watch. But like that's awesome. And then I'll watch it, 2 or 3 or 4 times, and then forget half of it like 6 months later and have to watch them again. So
And then you'll cut up little clips, like a 30-second clip of each one, and then post it on the Discord too, right? Because you're like, hey guys, everybody needs to pay attention to this piece.
exactly, yeah, yeah. I started doing that the other day. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. So all right, yeah. If you're not in the Discord, come in. We have lots of different rooms. We talk about all kinds of different things, obviously Metaplanet related. There's memes, there's emojis, there's fan art, there's live streams going on. There's all kinds of stuff, and it's like I thought this Discord would be dead, or like we'd reach like I don't know 300 people and like stay there, but it keeps growing, and I'm like, kind of nervous. I'm like, how are we going to handle this going on? But it's pretty cool. It's really cool to see the community coming together. So
Yeah, it's neat.
do you how do you enjoy the Discord discourse, Climb?
Yeah, it's probably too messy for some people. Some people are probably just. I think there's probably a lot of people who just lurk, which is totally fine. Like that's probably my normal state. Or it would be my normal state. But it's a brainstorming session. You learn people's personalities. You laugh at Al. Waiting. Al seemed like he had to wait like a month to smash buy Bitcoin because his money was in transfer for forever. It's pretty hilarious. But luckily, he got to buy the other day. So
Yeah, I'm glad for him.
yeah, but yeah, you learn people's personality. And then like with Jake doing the like when the Japanese market starts trading at night, a lot of times, yeah, he'll like you mentioned earlier, he'll sort of share his screen of sort of like their version of the pre-market. That's yeah. So anyway, he'll do that, and like today there were maybe 40 or 50 people in there.
I know
Um,
my screen is vertical or in the vertical orientation here to the side with my chat with my Discord, and I was taking a look at the room before we went live on air, and I swear the list of attendees like in Jake's room was taller than the screen. I had to scroll up and down. I'm like, Jake, do you know you have like 60 people in attendance? He's like, oh, don't tell me, man, don't make me nervous.
yeah, it's funny. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean people just contribute, and it's it's awesome, super organic, and it seems to grow stronger every day. So I
Yeah,
like it.
I like the speed of it. Like we're able to kind of communicate like faster and run ideas by each other a bit faster. Sometimes it's a bit hard to follow, but I think it definitely moves a bit faster than X. I still use X a lot, but that's why I've mainly been in Discord. That's where I met you. That's where we started talking, and we are able to just exchange information so much faster and interact and strategize that way.
Exactly. Yeah, it's awesome.
All right. Where to next? I have a back of the napkin bull fuel thing. That's kind of sandbag. I think it's actually pretty sandbaggy, but let's take a look at the guidance that Metaplanet has issued. 210K club, 1% club by the end of 2027. And let's take, for the Bitcoin 24 model, which is Michael Saylor's, open source Bitcoin price model to the world. Let's say that Bitcoin is at 200K then. So that would mean that 210 times the 200K would be $42 billion of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And that's, in my opinion, that's pretty conservative. That's a 1 mNAV, right? So if you divide by the market cap that was last week, 5.6 billion, then that's like a 7.5x from here. Even in like in market cap, right? Even if you have 150% dilution, you still like it's still like a 5x from here, and I believe those numbers to be conservative. Like I think that 210K I think that 1% Bitcoin goal is going to get smashed. I think Bitcoin is also going to smash 200 earlier than 2027. um any thoughts, Climb?
Yeah, I totally agree. And like, what we looked at before with their ranking, like, they were 11th, now they're 10th, and probably in 4 to 6 weeks they'll be, what did we say, like fourth or fifth, right? I think fifth. So, I mean, that's like a lot. There's a lot of companies that have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. There's not very many of them that are really doing this exponential growth. Some of the newer ones are, and we'll kind of see how their methods scale.
Hmm.
I'm not very sure-footed there, which is why I'm not playing in those markets. But they're following what Strategy did. They're using the premium on the stock to increase Bitcoin per share, which is exactly what shareholders want. They're not taking advantage of us. That's what we want. We're like, hey, please dilute us. Like, please make our shares more valuable. And it's essentially a repricing. So anyone that like thinks that this is a Ponzi scheme or something, I'll try to put out some math about why it's not later. Like I've thought about why, but even in my models before that I've shared, even if you talk about Bitcoin staying the same value, and even if you restrict mNAV to dropping like every single day in your model, um, you know you can still end up with a much higher share price than it is today. Um, just you know measured out in the right time frame and everything. But like you can still end up with higher stock prices, higher kind of a 1 mNAV relative price, right? Um, so yeah, it's really cool. And I mean, I can't wait to see what the next plan is. Like, they're not going to have to wait, I don't think, until the next March shareholder meeting to announce the next plan. We'll just see how fast, we help them get through this one.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I'm keeping my expectations low all the time, right? But I'm excitedly waiting for them to be smashed. So
Yeah, there's so
all
many
right,
different levels to success here. Yeah.
yeah. Climb. Any this is the end. I believe we're reaching the end of our first podcast together. Any? I had a good time. I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, after we sorted out the technical details, I hope all of you in the audience had a good time too. I'm sorry I wasn't able to monitor the chat. I was trying to focus on the presentation and making sure that everything was good. But I did look at some messages. I showed them. If you're not on X and following us or following Climb, don't care about me. Go follow Climb and then go also to the Discord and come say hi. Enjoy your stay. Don't cause a ruckus or we will bring the band hammer on you. Uh, we we would enjoy talking to anybody. It's always fun with more people. Bitcoin is a game that's fun with more people, right? All right. I will say more to come.
All right.
All right. Bye everybody.